A large and heavy metal box is delivered to a high schooler, Haruaki Yachai, apparently being yet another strange curiosity sent home by his father. After inspecting it, he has no idea what to do with it, so he throws it into the storage room and calls it a day. Haruaki wakes up in the middle of the night by a sound coming from his living room. Following the sound, he finds a completely nude, blue-haired girl snacking on some rice crackers. She is caught off guard by Haruaki suddenly walking in on her and starts calling him a pervert, threatening to curse him if he plays with her body again. It is then that Haruaki realizes that the girl must be the metal box he got earlier. He quickly prepares some roasted tea, explaining how it goes well together with rice crackers, using that chance to calm her down and get them properly introduced to each other. She reveals that her name is Fear and that his father sent her to his home in order for her to get better. More accurately, she is a tool powered by negative emotions in humans, namely a cursed tool. Since she was cursed by a large number of humans, she developed human characteristics and became sentient. But because of the curse, she turns any owner that uses her insane. However, Haruaki's father told her she could undo the curse and get better without harming anyone if she came here. Hearing that, Haruaki confirms that this is indeed true. It turns out that his home is built in an area with a lot of orderly energy, and in addition to that, he is special as curses have no effect on him, so he is completely safe from her influence. Thus, he is happy to help her out and assist her with getting rid of the curse. Just as Fear is wondering how he's going to do that, she gets interrupted by another girl entering the room. It is Kanawa, who Haruaki introduces as her childhood friend who lives just next door, and she has brought breakfast over. From the moment the two girls meet, they clash and start mocking each other, with Fear being clearly upset that Kanawa has such a big chest compared to her. When Kanawa hears that Fear is going to stay over at Haruaki's place from here on out, she gets worried and protests. Deciding to switch the topic, Haruaki states it is time for them to go to school, so they get ready to set out. In order to help Fear pass the time, he shows her how to use the television, which immediately captures her interest. But as soon as Haruaki and Kanawa leave, the show she was watching ends, resulting in her getting bored and lonely rather quickly. Deciding to head out and explore, she leaves the house and heads into the town. Eventually, she ends up in the shopping district, where she bumps into one of the shopkeepers. They are immediately taken in by her cute appearance and gather around her, giving her some snacks and chatting with her. Worried that she might be a lost child, they figure out that she is staying at Haruaki's place, so they reassure her that they know how she can return home. But Fear is not used to their honest kindness, so she quickly thanks them before running back home. Upon returning home, she decides that she will clean the house just like she saw on television, in order to pass time and repay some of the kindness she received. But it turns out she has no idea how to clean, so she ends up wrecking the entire place in an effort to get it clean. It only gets worse when a spider happens upon her, revealing how scared she is of the creepy crawlies. By the time she is done, she has ravaged the house like a storm. When Haruaki and Kanoha return home, they are shocked by the state they find it in. Haruaki quickly confronts Fear, wondering what happened for things to end up like this, but instead of giving him an honest answer, she makes up a story. Haruaki quickly calls her out on it, which makes her upset, and she runs off to her room. Since he needs to get ingredients for dinner, Haruaki goes shopping for groceries together with Kanawa. In the shopping district, they hear from the shopkeepers about their run-in with Fear earlier this day. Kanawa realizes that Fear must have been trying to repay Haruaki for deciding to help her lift her curse. But since she is a cursed tool, she has no idea how to do things properly. After revealing that to Haruaki, he wonders what he should tell her to make sure she does not feel bad about what happened. Kanawa is quick to reassure him that he just needs to be himself, since that worked perfectly fine in the past, when he was in the same situation with her. Once they are back home, Haruaki goes to Fear's room and apologizes for forgetting that she is not used to being human, promising to make an effort and make sure to help her out properly from here on out. This calms her down, and when he invites her to help prepare dinner together with him, she is quick to accept the offer. With his guidance, she is able to help out without doing any harm, but she reveals that she is worried how the curse upon her will not get broken, as she still has no idea how to properly respond to kindness and positive thoughts from others. Haruaki comforts her, telling her that he believes in her ability to break the cures. It will just take time, so she must take things slowly at her own pace. Haruaki's father has decided that it will be easier for Fear to get used to being around humans if she goes to school like everyone else, so he has made all the arrangements necessary to enlist her in Haruaki's class. She is ecstatic about her new school uniform, so much so that she presses Haruaki for compliments. Doing so, she ends up falling on top of him, ending up in a compromising position when Kanawa walks in on them. Arriving at school, they first go meet the superintendent, Gabriel, who always wears a scary gas mask. He is aware of the situation and has arranged so that Fear will be able to attend classes together with Haruaki. However, his scary appearance worries Fear, so he explains that he was born with a sickness that requires him to wear it all times. But that only turns out to be another excuse, as he has given everyone else a different story every time the topic arises. To change the direction of the conversation, he asked Haruaki if one of the items he recently purchased is a cursed tool, but it turns out to be just a simple mundane object. Fear's cute appearance is a big hit in the class, and everyone immediately takes a liking to her. But when they hear that she is staying at Haruaki's place, his classmates get jealous, the one having the most issues with it being the student body president, Kirika. She insists that she will have to be informed about their situation in detail, while Fear is swarmed by her new classmates trying to get her to join their clubs. During lunch break, Haruaki and Kirika reveal their ongoing rivalry, where they compare their homemade bento boxes. Despite Kirika's best efforts, Haruaki is the reigning champion as his lunch is always better. Meanwhile, at an undisclosed location, a blonde lady is upset that she was given a cursed tool to help out with her mission. At first, she blames her assigned supporter, but when she realizes that her supporter does not know anything about it, she gives up and decides to focus on the mission instead. After the lessons end for the day, Fear, Haruaki, and Kanoa head back home. Fear declares that school was quite fun and that she is beginning to like this town. It is then that she notices the ocean in the distance and gets curious about it. Deciding to show her the ocean up close, Haruaki brings them to the shore, wondering if she did not have an ocean where she is from. Hearing him inquire about her origin, she asked if he would like to learn more about her. At that moment, the blonde lady from before shows up, interrupting their conversation while introducing herself as Peavy, a member of Knights of Gathering. Peavy reveals that she is familiar with Fear's origin, and her organization is opposed to Haruaki's father. Instead of helping cursed tools, they want to see them all destroyed by any means necessary. Without wasting another moment, she rushes forward and attacks them. While battling, she reveals how Fear used to torture and kill countless people, both guilty and innocent, of any and all social standing. She was made during the Inquisition with the only purpose of torturing and executing those captured. Forcing Fear to remember all of the horrible things she used to do in the past makes her break down, insisting that she was doing those things against her own will. Kanova cannot bear to watch this any longer, and she suddenly jumps into the fray, tackling Peavy head-on. But Peavy is a tough opponent, and Kanoa quickly gets pushed back. At that moment, Haruaki also decides to step in, asking Kanoa to give him a hand. She happily accepts and transforms into an ornate katana, revealing that her full name is Miramasa Kanoa and she is a cursed tool as well. Using her special ability, she is able to destroy one of Peavy's weapons without hurting her, as she does not like to draw blood. But it turns out Peavy was already hurt and bleeding, thanks to her own weapon design. Suddenly, Haruaki realizes that Peavy is not the only one bleeding, as his own hand got cut up in the previous exchange. The sudden surge of pain causes him to let out a surprise scream, which triggers Fear, and she goes berserk. With Fear going out of control, she starts using all of her deadly contraptions, which slowly but surely overpower Peavy, cutting off her arm in the end. Despite the grievous injury, Peavy wants to keep fighting, but just as she is about to collapse, she is rescued by her supporter and extracted to safety. Haruaki is relieved that the danger has passed, but Fear is still out of control, and she ends up attacking him next. Kanoa quickly repels Fear's attacks and successfully smacks some sense back into her. She tells Haruaki that this is what she was made for, and that she tried to escape from her gruesome past, but it is clear that she cannot do it. She knows that Haruaki wants to help her in any way he can, but she wonders if she can truly be forgiven for her sins, so she decides to execute her punishment herself, running off on her own. Haruaki tries to stop her, but his injury finally takes its toll and he passes out. After regaining his senses, he finds himself back home, where Kanoa brought him and tended to his wounds. Even though she is concerned about his health and a potential run-in with Peavy again, Haruaki convinces her to help him go after Fear, fearing that she might do something stupid. Seeing his determination, Kanoa gives him some advice on how she overcame her own curse, so he can pass that on to Fear when he finds her. Meanwhile, Fear remembers her past as she wanders the streets aimlessly. The past filled with screams of torture she inflicted, screams she cannot shut out. In that state, she runs into Kirika, whom notices that something is wrong and tries to stop her, but that only provokes Fear into becoming hostile again, attacking with the intent to kill. Kirika calls out her name and manages to get through to her, forcing her to regain her senses and stop. Without answering Kirika, Fear just wanders off on her own, now even more certain that there is no hope for her. Peavy's supporter manages to use a cursed item to stop her bleeding, saving her life. Since Peavy despises cursed tools, she gets upset, but her supporter does not back down, insisting that she made the right call and showing her just how weak she is right now, so saving her was her priority over everything else. Meanwhile, Haruaki is running around the city searching for Fear, when he gets a call from Kirika. She tells him that she ran into Fear and has some questions about what happened. But instead of answering those questions, Haruaki apologizes and promises that he will explain everything later. Swiftly returning to his search for Fear, while thinking where she could have run off to, he remembers her fascination with the ocean and heads straight towards the shore. Fear remembers how the screams of the only person she ever loved sounded, and she was the one that forced them out of him. Deciding that she is beyond redemption, she gazes into the stormy ocean and jumps into it, resolved to spend the rest of her time in its cold depths. Haruaki arrives at the shore, but instead of Fear, all he finds is the Rubik's Cube he gave her as a present. Not wasting any time, he jumps into the ocean and dives after her. He is able to reach her and pull her back to the surface without any issues. When Fear regains her senses, she finds herself piggyback riding on Haruaki's back, who is headed back home. Although she is happy that he came for her, she confesses that screams of those she cares about terrify her. And if she would hear him scream once again, she would lose control for sure. So he should get rid of her while she is still herself, since she does not have the right to burden him like that. However, Haruaki refuses to cast Fear aside, reassuring her that as long as she wants to stay here with him, she can, and that is all that matters. Hearing that makes Fear unable to hold back her tears, so she hugs him tightly to hide her face. Back home, Fear insists on repaying Haruaki by washing his back, but he is too embarrassed, so they create a scene. Kanova and Kirika, who was visiting to talk about what happened the other day, arrive there just in time to witness the new Fear fall on top of Haruaki. Scene that makes Kanova upset, and she declares that she will be moving into the house to make sure nothing untoward is going on. Peevy demands that her supporter removes all of the bandages covering her burnt body, as they are a cursed tool, and she despises them more than anything. Her supporter is hesitant, embarrassed about having her flawed skin exposed, but in the end she complies. When she is completely exposed, Peevy compliments her, stating how the only unsightly part on her was the cursed tool. She places her hand on her supporter, which startles the girl, and she reveals that she was never embraced, even by her own parents, who found her body hideous. Peevy reassures her that she is not and decides to take a break, leaving all the preparations for the mission up to the girl. Haruaki reveals to Kirika the truth behind Fear and Kanova, who takes it surprisingly well, not questioning the fact that they are cursed tools at all, stating that what she saw when she ran into Fear was more than enough to convince her. At that moment, Peevy's supporter shows up at Haruaki's home. She suggests that they either destroy Fear or hand her over to them, as getting her is their goal, and she would like to avoid unnecessary bloodshed. Leaving behind a way to contact her, she gives them one day to think it over. Naturally, Haruaki immediately declares that they will not betray Fear, no matter what. Later that night, a mysterious figure appears in Haruaki's room, but before any harm can come upon him, Kanova and Fear rush in and protect him. Despite Fear's deadly attack, the assailant manages to get away without revealing their identity. When Peevy wakes up, she discovers the new cursed weapon that her organization gave her to help with her mission. Noticing how Fear acted when they confronted the intruder, Kanova provokes her when they get a moment on their own. This proves very effective, and Fear attacks her with murderous intent. When she confirms that Fear is unstable, Kanova apologizes and reveals it was all a trick to make her see how dangerous she currently is. Since she could end up hurting Haruaki in this state, Kanova insists that she must avoid fighting at all cost, at least until she stops being a slave to her own power. Feeling hopeless, Fear returns to Haruaki and asks him to get rid of her, since she is nothing but a danger to him. Yet again, he reassures her that she is not a burden of any kind, and she calms down. Noticing that she accidentally cut his finger during her little tantrum, she licks it in order to make it all better. Their intimate moment is interrupted by Peevy, who has come to finish what she started last time. Kanova quickly jumps in to protect Haruaki and Fear, so Peevy reveals her new cursed tool. Even though her hate for cursed tools causes her to vomit, she still decides to use it to get her mission done. Telling Fear to sit this one out, Haruaki and Kanova stand against Peevy on their own. When they wonder where her supporter is hiding, Peevy reveals that they do not need to worry about her. It turns out Peevy found out about her supporter's attempt at negotiating, so she took her life in order to awaken her cursed tool. After all, she wants to destroy both Fear and Kanova, so she viewed that act as betrayal. Even with the new, powerful cursed tool, Peevy has a hard time against Haruaki and Kanova, so she wonders why he goes to such lengths to protect cursed tools. Haruaki explains that humans are responsible for creating cursed tools in the first place, so the tools are not to blame. The very least he can do is be there for them and help them out. This only serves to enrage Peevy further, and she goes all out, revealing that her cursed tool will continue attacking even if she dies, so she ends up completely ignoring her own safety. Seeing that and hearing Haruaki's reasoning touches Fear, and she decides that she will no longer sit at the sidelines, not wanting to see Haruaki get hurt anymore. At that moment, Kirika shows up at their home as well. This time, in full control over herself, Fear jumps into the fray and attacks Peavy. The two of them clash with everything they got, and Fear seems to have the upper hand, pushing Peavy back for the time being. Kanama protests against her fighting, but Fear simply states that she should destroy her if she starts acting strangely again. Instead of agreeing to that, both Kanava and Haruaki reprimand her for even suggesting something like that. Haruaki decides that if she is placing her trust in them, then he will also place his trust into her and believe that she will do her best to not lose control. Hearing that makes Fear really happy, but she quickly hides her happiness with a snide remark. Even though she is eager to resume the battle against Peavy, Kanoha reminds her that Haruaki needs a short break, so they decide to hide for the time being. It is then that Peavy notices Kirika entering the premises and ambushes her. Using her as a hostage, she demands that they stop hiding and come forth, or she will take her life. With the unfortunate change in situation, Fear quickly rushes to face Peavy, insisting that she releases the hostage. But instead of staying true to her word, Peavy gets annoyed that a cursed tool is acting like a human and ends up cutting down Kirika on the spot. Witnessing that makes it hard for Fear to hold on to her senses, and she has to focus just to not lose control. Peavy uses that to her advantage and attacks Fear, but this turns out to be a trap, as Kanova and Haruaki have decided to put their faith in Fear and hid in one of her torture contraptions. When Fear releases them, they get a jump on Peavy and turn the tide. But Peavy refuses to go down despite her injuries, so Kanowa is forced to break one of her own rules and executes her killing move, which destroys Peavy's cursed tool and inflicts a grave injury upon her. Thinking it is over, Haruaki runs to Fear's side to check on her, but Peavy then pulls out a hidden gun and aims it at him. Just as she is about to fire, Kirika surprises everyone by stepping in and using her own cursed tool to knock her out. Shedding her torn clothes, Kirika reveals that she is wearing kinky black leather undergarments underneath. She extracts a strange device called an indulgence disc from Peavy's broken cursed tool and gives it to Fear, telling her that those things are related to her. Kirika reassures them that she will take care of Peavy and leaves. After the classes are over on the following day, she meets up with them again to shed some light on the situation. She reveals that those kinky clothes are a cursed tool which makes it impossible for her to die from any external injury, but in return, she would die instantly if she would take it off, and the attack she used to knock out Peavy is from yet another cursed tool she wields, which used to belong to a serial killer in the past. Kirika tells them that she tried to help them from the shadows. First, she made sure that Peavy would find out her supporters' peaceful resolution plan, and then she tried to kidnap Haruaki to keep him safe. But when she saw how much the two of them care for him, and how prepared they are to protect him, she changed her mind on that part. They wonder why she did not just come out and tell them everything from the start, to which she reveals that she belongs to a certain organization, namely the Laboratory Kingdom, whose goal is to study and research curses and cursed tools, which makes it hard for her to act openly. This means that she was fully aware of Kanova and Fear not being human from the start, as she was placed in this school to observe Haruaki and Kanowa back home. Fear figures out how to use the indulgence disc that they got from Peavy's cursed tool. She has Haruaki assist her with inserting it into her socket, which turns into quite the lewd interaction, or at least that is what Kanoa believes based on what she can hear. But when she storms into the room to break it off, she sees that Fear is in her box form, as that is the only way for her to have the disc inserted into her. Despite that, she calls Haruaki a pervert. On the other hand, Fear is hyped to declare how one of her more disturbing modes got disabled thanks to the disc, which makes her believe that getting more indulgence discs is a certain way to stop her from harming others. Gabriel calls for Haruaki to take a closer look at a cursed tool that was entrusted to him, as it has already caused the death of the person who had it and hospitalized his daughter, Shiraho, who also happens to attend the same school as they do. But when they open the trunk containing the cursed tool, they find it empty. Eager to be helpful towards others in order to lift her own curse, Fear immediately volunteers to look for the missing cursed tool. It is then that the news from the school nurse reaches them. Apparently, a few students have been found collapsed and drained of energy. Suspecting that the missing cursed tool is behind this, Fear wastes no more time and dashes out of the office. But she quickly realizes that she has no idea where to start searching. Just then she spots something move through the window in a supposedly empty room. Rushing to the scene, Fear, followed by Haruaki and Kanoa, find an unconscious high schooler and a girl next to him. She introduces herself as Sovereignty, a perfect doll, and she is still getting used to being human. At that moment, another girl peeks into the room, and Sovereignty refers to her as Shiraho. Shiraho wonders why she is doing all of this, to which Sovereignty simply declares that it has to be done, adding that she despises humans. They only care to use a doll, and when they get paid for the doll's performance, they toss them away and forget about them. She turns to leave, but Fear and Kanawa try to stop her. It is then that Sovereignty reveals her role as that of a queen, which brings all dolls under her command. Using her power, she animates all of the nearby dolls, and a fight breaks out. During the fight, she keeps everyone busy long enough to slip away unnoticed. Reasoning that she must still be somewhere on school grounds, they continue searching for her. During the search, Shiravo explains how Sovereignty must feel betrayed by humans, as she was suddenly put into a trunk and brought to an unknown place. After a while, they realize that she has fled the school grounds and give up the search. Fear figures that she must have thought she was going to be destroyed or locked up, and that is why she keeps running away. Shiravo is surprised to hear that Sovereignty's curse can be lifted, and immediately becomes eager to bring the news to her as she finds her. Despite everything that happened, she still considers Sovereignty to be her friend, even if Sovereignty no longer feels the same way. Hearing that, Fear promises that she will do everything she can to track Sovereignty down and help her. As soon as the final school bell rings, Fear starts searching the school for any sign of her. But instead of her, she runs into Superintendent Secretary Zenon, who notifies her that yet another student has been found unconscious. Soon thereafter, Fear runs into Shirado. She confesses how it troubles her that she was unable to stop Sovereignty from claiming another victim, as she is a fellow cursed tool. Hearing that Fear genuinely wants the best for Sovereignty makes Shirado happy, and she reassures Fear that hearing this would make Sovereignty happy as well. Suddenly, Haruaki is summoned to the racetracks by a handsome boy. But when he arrives there, he finds Sovereignty in place of the boy, realizing that it must have been her who summoned him. She asks him to turn a blind eye to her, as the life force she takes from humans is not enough to actually harm them. But instead of going with her proposal, he reveals that her curse can be lifted. Unexpectedly, she does not seem happy about it, instead asking him if anyone really wants to have their curses lifted in the first place, before turning to leave. Just as Haruaki attempts to pursue, he overhears other students nearby talking about a new victim, who is none other than Kanawa. Back home, Haruaki is watching over Kanawa, who is still recovering from the incident. When she comes to, she feels very strange and, in order to get better, insists that she has to hold his hand. He gives her his hand, which she ends up pulling tightly against her chest. While this is quite embarrassing for Haruaki, it seems to calm her down and she falls asleep rather quickly. Once she is sound asleep, he whittles his hand free from her grasp, but in the process he strains her shirt. The buttons holding her large chest and check start giving out, and before long it snaps open. But just before he can lay his eyes on her bare chest, she transforms into her katana form, which leaves Haruaki rather disappointed. Fear is feeling down since she was not able to do anything for Sovereignty, and now even Kanawa has fallen victim to her. In order to cheer her up, Haruaki takes her shopping with him. This proves to be exactly the thing she needs to snap out of it, and before long, Fear is back to her old self. After returning home, they start preparing dinner together, and Haruaki teaches her how to make rolled cabbage. Fear feels strange, knowing that her hands, which were made to torture and kill, are now used to prepare food instead. Haruaki comforts her, but their moment gets interrupted by the doorbell. It is Kirika, who has come to check in on Kanawa and ask if there is anything she can do to help. It turns out she is quite frustrated by the fact that Haruaki is keeping her out of the loop. She declares that she is no longer a part of that organization, so he does not have to tiptoe around her, confessing that being treated differently by him was an aggravating experience. Hearing that, Haruaki is relieved and he quickly explains the situation to her. While they are trying to piece the puzzle together, Kanoha wakes up and reveals that Sovereignty must have an accomplice, since she would have not been able to take her out at the same time as she was conversing with Haruaki. To find out more about the potential accomplice, they decide to question Shirado, but the following day she is absent from school. First, they go to the superintendent in order to get her address, but he is away on another one of his crazy adventures, so instead they go to the nurse's office. There, the nurse allows them to take a look at Shiraho's file, and they are all left in shock when they realize that Shiraho is in fact the person they thought to be Sovereignty, while Sovereignty was Shiraho this whole time. Rushing to her home, they find Shiraho pinned against the wall and threatened by a handsome boy with a blade. They quickly break them apart, and the boy thanks them, revealing that he is another form of Sovereignty. It turns out they transform into the perfect companion for whoever their current partner is. Fear feels betrayed by the deception, yelling how she wanted to save both of them from the bottom of her heart, and she was only told lies in return. Haruaki steps forward and asks for their side of the story, but then Sovereignty suddenly loses control of their power and charges at Haruaki. Kirika steps in the way and takes the fatal blow in his place. Not knowing that Kirika cannot be killed like this, Sovereignty runs away in a panic. Haruaki pulls Kirika into his arms out of concern, but she reassures him that she is just fine and just gets embarrassed by the situation. Kanawa confronts Shirado, who begs them to not destroy Sovereignty. She reveals that Sovereignty's actual curse is to make their partner love them to death. explaining how sovereignty's curse triggers when their partner falls in love with them, which causes them to sprout blades all over their body and pull them into a deadly embrace. It is not something they can control, but even though sovereignty told her everything about it, Shiraho still decided to accept them as they are, revealing that, despite being a doll herself, Shiraho has developed feelings for another doll. With Shiraho's cooperation, they finally uncover the entire truth behind what is happening at school. It turns out that in order to slow down sovereignty's curse, they had him feed on love of other students. This distorts their curse's ability to measure love, so it does not get triggered immediately when they are with Shiraho. Instead of running away, sovereignty chose to do this so they could remain together with Shiraho as long as possible. Fear wonders why sovereignty did not reveal the truth to them when they learned that their curse can be broken and instead chose to deceive them. But hearing that makes Shiraho upset, she lashes out at Fear, explaining that their love is bound to the curse, so by simply erasing it would make their love disappear. Haruaki comforts Shiraho, telling her how this attitude is very human-like. Fear realizes that she said something that upset Shiraho, so she apologizes, explaining that she is still learning what love is and did not mean to offend. This calms Shiraho down, and they convince her to make contact with sovereignty so they could meet up and resolve the issue. Fear comes up with an idea how to do that, but shares it only with Kanova and Kirika, leaving Haruaki and Shiraho in the dark. The reason for that becomes evident when they reach the meeting place. In order to bait out sovereignty, Kanova uses Haruaki to hold Shiraho hostage, threatening to take her life if sovereignty does not show up. Even though Haruaki is opposed to this, he is unable to do anything against the three girls on his own. Soon enough, sovereignty arrives to save Shiraho, and their mutual love is causing multiple blades to immediately sprout out of their body. Fear taunts them, demanding that they show just how much they love Shiraho if they want to save her, and a fight breaks out. Even though sovereignty does their best to fight back, they are unable to beat Fear and Kirika working together. Before long, Fear manages to capture them into one of her many torture contraptions. She disappointedly dismisses all of their efforts, calling them futile, and prepares to use the contraption to rip sovereignty apart. This makes Shiraho cry out, begging Fear to kill her instead and spare sovereignty. Hearing just how strongly she feels for them brings sovereignty's curse to its climax, and all of the blades erupt out of them. Fear then gives Haruaki the signal to act, and he immediately understands the plan. He attacks sovereignty with Kanova, using her special ability to destroy all of sovereignty's blades in one go, but not harming them directly. This ensures that the curse is still intact, while the weapons used to take their lover's life are no longer there. With that out of the way, Shiraho and sovereignty are released, and without any danger to Shiraho's life, they are finally able to express their love for each other. Gabriel thanks everyone for their help in resolving the issue, and is quite lenient with punishing sovereignty and Shiraho for the trouble they caused. Shiraho's only punishment is to continue attending her classes on a regular basis, while sovereignty becomes Zenon's assistant. While sovereignty has trouble performing their new duties due to being a klutz, no one really minds it, since they are so adorable. Finally, he reveals to Shiraho that her late father brought sovereignty to his attention because he wanted to find a way for Shiraho and sovereignty to be happy together. However, he was not good at expressing how he feels, and that is likely why Shiraho never noticed how much he cared for her. Sovereignty is grateful for everyone helping them get rid of the deadly blades hidden within her, and to thank them for it, she gives Fear the indulgence disc that was left behind after they got broken. When Shiraho gets the chance to think over what she learned about her father, she cannot help but break her stoic expression and smile, which makes her quite popular among her classmates, who are excited to see her pretty smile for the first time. After the lessons end for the day, Fear questions sovereignty about love, wondering if it is something that is already in her heart as well. But instead of giving her a direct answer, sovereignty tells her that this is something she has to find out on her own, wishing her good luck. Returning home from grocery shopping, Haruaki and Kanova hear Fear's scream just as they approach the door, rushing to see what is wrong. They find her in a compromising position, tied up by long strands of hair. The hair is coming from a little girl who suddenly greets them in a familiar fashion, stating how she captured someone suspicious. Haruaki immediately recognizes Kuro, yet another cursed tool he helped in the past, and explains that Fear is not anyone suspicious but their new roommate. Realizing she made a mistake, Kuro sets Fear free and apologizes, offering herself up to her so Fear can punish her in any way she seems fit. But instead of punishing her, Fear is more fascinated by how Kuro managed to overcome her curse and still keep her powers. Kuro reveals that getting rid of the curse does not mean she has to give up her powers. The only difference is that she is no longer compelled to drain the life force of humans. Now that she is back, she wants to open up her shop again. But before she can focus on that, she reveals that she is being stalked by a would-be kidnapper. As if on cue, the stalker appears just outside of their room, introducing herself as Alice. She explains that she is a member of Bivorio families and expresses her desire to take Kira with her, promising that she will be treated kindly, just as she is here. Regardless of her well-spoken, disarming words, she seems to be getting ready for a fight, so Fear jumps in and readies herself for combat. Seeing that, Alice immediately promises to give up on Kira, but instead she wants Fear to come in her place. Fear immediately refuses, so Alice takes her leave, promising that she will return to invite her again soon. Meanwhile, Kirika confronts her former partner from the organization, Suno, accusing him of helping Sovereignty make their initial escape and cause ruckus all over the school grounds. Suno is quick to downplay his involvement, simply stating that he only unlocked the container, which helped the organization gather valuable data by observing the cursed tools in action. Instead, he shifts his attention to Kirika, flirting with her and feeling her up. Kirika wants none of that, and she is quick to push him away before leaving. Fear, Kanova, and Haruaki are handing out flyers to attract customers to Kiro's beauty parlor reopening. However, Fear is not very good with her words and is only scaring people away with her phrasing. Haruaki reprimands her for it and reveals that Kiro is actually very popular, since she can use her powers to style hair with ease and unmatchable precision. Remembering that Kirika could help them with spreading the word about the beauty parlor, Haruaki approaches her and asks for her assistance. Noticing how passionate he is, Kirika realizes that she has developed feelings for him, so she agrees, but with the condition that he helps her with her own student council work as well. After a long day, Fear is relaxing in the bath when Kiro walks in. She wants to bathe together with her so they could get closer. Just then, Haruaki walks by the door and overhears their voices. He believes they are doing something lewd, so he cannot help but listen in. Before he can leave, they suddenly exit the bath and catch him in the act. While Fear is scolding him for being a pervert, Kiro simply says that he should have joined them instead. The following day, the entire shopping district is bustling, as many people have come to visit Kiro's parlor. Even Sovereignty and Shiraho drop in to say hi. They are accompanied by Zenon, who brought many attractive outfits for the girls so they could attract more customers. This proves to be very effective, and Kiro's parlor is filled with customers. When they are ready to call it a day, Sovereignty and Shiraho go on a date. Just as they leave, Alice shows up. But instead of causing trouble, she visits the parlor as a customer and has her hair cut. Before leaving, she explains that she is the culprit, but does not elaborate what she means with that. Kirika feels extremely frustrated thanks to the effect of her cursed tool. Just as she is trying to relax, she gets a phone call from Suno, who tells her to not get involved with Bivorio families. If she does, he will have to reveal her dirty secret to Haruaki. Fear is practicing for the upcoming dance contests, and Kanawa is coaching her. But since she is not very good at it, she gets upset at Kanova, and together with Kiro, they start teasing her for having such a large chest. Their carefree morning gets interrupted by the news of a murder happening nearby. The first thing they consider are Alice's words when she told them that she is the culprit ahead of time. As soon as the lessons are over for the day, they start looking for Alice all over the city, and surprisingly they are able to find her rather easily. She confesses that she is indeed the culprit, but it is too early to reveal everything, as only a single person has died thus far. Instead, she tells them to figure out what the common link among all the victims will be, and runs away. Fear, Kanova, and Haruaki give chase, eventually catching up with her in an abandoned building. Seeing that she has no other options left, Alice gets ready to fight, revealing that she has a powerful cursed tool hidden inside of the instrument she always carries about. Not only that, but she is also very skilled in combat. Growing tired of the battle, she causes the entire building to collapse. This allows her to escape, and Haruaki remains unharmed only thanks to Fear protecting him within one of her contraptions. Even though she saved Haruaki, Fear is dejected by the fact that she allowed the murderer to escape, knowing that she will take more lives. The next day, another body is found. Fear approaches Kirika and asks for her help, but Kirika refuses, stating how she is too busy with her own things. And when Haruaki asks if he can leave early, she insists that he stays and helps with student council work as he promised. At that moment, she suddenly feels faint, so Haruaki offers her his shoulder for support. Noticing that something is off with Kirika, Fear leaves her in Haruaki's care and runs off to look for Alice on her own. Meanwhile, another satisfied customer leaves behind a present for Kira to thank her for her hard work. In the student council room, Kira confesses how she knows that she should have let Haruaki go instead of stopping him. But right now, she wants to spend some more time with him, as that makes her really happy for some reason. Apologizing for being selfish, she reaches her limit and collapses. Rushing her to the nurse's office, Haruaki remembers that she has her cursed tool underneath her clothes, so he comes up with an excuse for the nurse to not remove her clothes. Luckily, Kiriko wakes up again in time to insist on going home. Haruaki escorts her all the way back to her room, where she asks him to stay and watch as she has to reveal something important to him. Deciding that she will not allow herself to be blackmailed by Suno, she tells Haruaki that she will show him something very naughty, and she proceeds to strip down. At the same time, Fear arrives at Kuro's parlor and finds her absorbing someone's hair in private. Kirika tells Haruaki that her cursed tool forces her to harm someone by binding, choking, and even killing them with it. But since she has the other cursed tool, which makes her immune to such injuries, she always uses herself to fulfill that need. Then she proceeds to use her weapon to bondage herself and gradually hurt herself until her urge to do it is sated. Witnessing her dirty secret, Haruaki comforts her, telling her. Worried about what that might mean, Haruaki calls Kirika to come over so she can help them figure out the situation they find themselves in. After hearing Fear's reasoning, Kuro offers herself to be locked up until suspicion of her has been resolved. But Fear gets worried that maybe Kuro did not get rid of her curse after all, and the truth is that curses cannot be completely broken. Worried with tears in her eyes, she storms off into her room. Kuro explains that consuming the victim's hair is not something her curse made her do, but instead it is a way to recharge her energy and also pay respects to the victims in her own way. At that moment, Alice makes her appearance as well. Haruaki quickly declares that they figured out the common trait among the victims, but when he elaborates what it is, Alice states that this is not the answer she is looking for. Fear notices Alice's presence and rushes to confront her. Joined by Kanoha, the two of them engage Alice, who quickly makes her escape, so they start their pursuit. But it turns out that they played right into Alice's trap as she suddenly appears behind the remaining trio. Using a cursed tool, she completely paralyzes Kuro and takes Haruaki hostage, forcing Kirika to behave herself. She kidnaps the three of them, bringing them to a hidden location and restraining them with handcuffs, after which she forces them to make a video recording. In the video recording, she demands that Fear joins the Bivorio families, elaborating how they treat all of the cursed tools like family, accepting and loving them, as well as the curses they carry with them. Instead of trying to break the curses, they accept and embrace them, doing their best to comply with whatever urges their curses cause them to have. To show her the proof of this devotion, she reveals that the common trait among all the murders was the fact that the murdered women were all members of their family who gave their lives happily for their cause. Once they are done recording the video message, Alice locks them into a nearby room, where they are left to their own devices. Unfortunately, they cannot do much in the situation they find themselves in. However, before long, Suno makes his appearance. Using a cursed tool to erase his presence, he breaks into the place they are held and proceeds to free Kirika. She quickly demands that he frees Haruaki as well, but Suno refuses. He reveals that Alice is the head of the Bivorio families, so this entire situation is quite interesting to observe. Not to mention, his cursed tool allows him to hide only one more person in addition to himself. Kirika tries to protest, but he uses the hidden stun gun to knock her out. Just as he is making his escape with Kirika over his shoulder, Haruaki asks him to make sure she is safe at the very least. When she wakes up, Kirika is already being driven to a safe location by Suno. However, she has no intention of abandoning the person she loves, declaring that she is sick and tired of the laboratory kingdom and wishes to no longer associate with them. She grabs the steering wheel, which causes him to lose control of the car and have an accident. Thanks to her cursed tool, she is able to immediately leave the crash site despite her injuries and head for Haruaki's home. There she regroups with Fear and Kanoha, briefing them about the situation. Fear feels remorseful about suspecting Kuro, so she wants to head out immediately to save her and Haruaki. Arriving at Alice's hideout, Fear challenges her to a fight, demanding that she frees Haruaki if they win, and if they lose, she can take her away to her families. This only makes Alice want Fear and her family even more, and she eagerly accepts the challenge. Despite being outnumbered, Alice is strong enough to hold her own and even repel Fear and Kanoha's attacks. Haruaki realizes that he has to do something, so he forces his hands out of the handcuffs, injuring himself in the process. However, this allows him to pick up Kuro and regroup with everyone else. Not happy with the change in situation, Alice unleashes another one of the cursed tools at her disposal, creating many identical copies of herself. Despite being copies, they exhibit all of the properties of the original, including their arsenal of weapons and powers. Fear quickly charges ahead to try and destroy the cursed tool, allowing Alice to clone herself, but to her surprise, one of the clones jumps straight at her weapon, fatally impaling herself on it in an attempt to trigger Fear. This is enough to throw Fear off, and she has to stop fighting so she can focus on not losing herself. Kirika jumps in to try and help, but she is quickly subdued by the clones, who start torturing her on the spot. Haruaki realizes that it is up to him, so he asks Kanoha to transform into her katana form, and using her he charges into the fray. But the two of them are no match for the small army of Alice's, and they get pushed back rather easily. Just as things seem to be hopeless, Shiraho and Sovereignty make their appearance. It turns out Kirika told them what was going on, so in order to repay their debt, they decided to help them out. Sovereignty uses her power to animate a doll, namely Kuro. This allows Kuro to move despite being paralyzed, and she smashes the cursed tool which is keeping her paralyzed. With that cursed tool destroyed, Kuro is free to move once more. She quickly uses her ability and restrains all of the clones with her hair. Fear manages to remain sane and is ready to pick up where she left off against Alice. She refutes what Alice is trying to do to her, declaring how her family's love is fake, as she is not interested in who she is now, but instead in what she used to be. Spotting an opening, Haruaki and Konoha jump in, striking at Alice's weapon and badly damaging it. With renewed determination, Fear declares how she wants to become human, as she wants to experience the happiness which she saw that they are capable of, and this is the opposite of what Alice wants for her. On the other hand, Alice cannot accept that humans are better than tools, and in her disbelief ends up getting defeated by Fear's final move. With Alice defeated and her weapons broken, they demand that she gives up, but instead of doing so, she throws herself off of the docks and into the ocean. Much to their surprise, a yacht comes by and she gets caught by the man standing on its deck, saving her from the fall. It turns out to be Alice's lover, who is also a cursed tool, and he protects her from Fear's follow-up attack, allowing them to safely retreat for now. Back home, things are finally calming down. Fear has the indulgence disc retrieved from Alice's weapon inserted into her by Haruaki, the act of which devolves into a lewd scene once again. This time, Kuro is there to record the entire ordeal as well. Fear apologizes to Kuro for suspecting her earlier, but it turns out Kuro is not even slightly upset about it, and instead she gives her and Konoha the payment for helping out with her paro the other day. Getting a chance to talk with Haruaki in private, Fear wonders why some humans are like tools and some tools are like humans, trying to find out what the difference between them really is. Noticing that she is worried as she is just a tool and nothing more after all, Haruaki reassures her that a tool would not concern itself about its own existence. Hearing that makes Fear happy, knowing that she is on the right track to become completely human.